Hello and welcome back, adventurers. Get comfy and let me tell you about Mordentish folk and their daily struggles. Given its small size, insular customs and a welcoming terrain, one should not be surprised that the folk of Mordent are by and large all descended from the same stock, which traces its line back to the Rainier family and the first groups of settlers that came to try and tame this unforgiving land. This is not to say that Mordentish folk all consider themselves on equal footing, far from it in fact. While the noble families may have all but died out and their blood long since mingled with the common folk before then, distinguishing a certain deviation between the upper class and lower class of the realm is possible and practiced by many. That division and prejudice make it hard for any newcomers to adapt, but those wretched souls known as Calibans have it worst of all. While quite rare, Mordentish folk view the birth of one as the sign of great evil in the area, matched only by the shame and horror of the parents. Keeping such a child in community is strictly forbidden, in the belief that doing so would encourage the evil to dwell there as well. Many such children are thus left abandoned at the doorsteps of a local church of Ezra, or given to be raised by wise women in the wild. One of the most striking elements to be noted about Mordentish people is their eyes, so like the sea they love amidst the mist that surround them. Grey blue and blue-green are most common colors, with the blues and greens becoming curiously more pronounced while traveling through the fog of any kind. Even more striking are the Mordentish folk who have solid grey eyes. Sometimes called children of the mists by their peers, these folk are reputed to see through the mists as though they were nothing. Although one would think that a nation that has long embraced an aristocratic class would be rife with fashion, such is not the case. Indeed, Mordentish folk pride themselves on being above such petty considerations, especially in contrast to their neighbours in Demantlu. While some class distinctions are naturally apparent, as a whole the Mordentish have no real love of finery without purpose. Those of higher social standing are most often distinguished by the quality of their clothing, as opposed to any obvious accessories. However, wearing lockets on social occasions has recently become quite the rage, most commonly ones containing pictures of husband and a wife, or a woman's parents if she is unmarried. As befits a land so occupied with gossip and whispered superstitions, storytelling is a finely honed but quietly practiced art among this reserved folk. Those who spin a good yarn are welcome around any hearth, but those who are perceived as overly flamboyant performers or simply interested in boasting are dismissed as self-important fools. One activity both classes enjoy is meeting up at the inn after sunset. A hot meal, alcohol, and conversation heads to areas of gossip, folktales, and current events. Although they remain somewhat prideful and reserved in the presence of strangers, Mordentish folk enjoy few such inhibitions with each other and have made a fine art of holding an ordinary sounding conversations that nonetheless manage to convey the most scandalous details about their neighbors. Another rather startling quality is the fact that Mordentish, who are very fond of their dogs in general and fox hunting in particular, allow these animals in their taverns without a second thought. Upon entering a busy tavern, not only does one encounter a din of conversation, but also the sound of barking and howling of dogs. I must also note that while dogs are allowed in taverns, especially prized hunting dogs, one's children are not, leaving one parent to stay at home and care for the children, while their spouse enjoys the night socializing with the neighbors. Mordentish children thus spend a great deal of their time at home, which is hardly surprising considering that many parents still prefer to educate their children themselves whenever possible. Some larger villages have built schoolhouses where local children can gather and be taught in a group by a single teacher. However, this innovation still has a long way to go in Mordent, as most common folk prefer to have a spare pair of hands at home. I should also note that Mordentish people place a great deal of value on respect of one's elders, to such a degree that such respect sometimes even supersedes other social considerations, often to the surprise of foreigners used to more rigid hierarchies. Elders are always referred by their full name, even by family members, until they give one leave to do otherwise, and those who harm or harass an elder can expect dire consequences from local population. Divine magic is considered a relatively normal and even accepted part of daily life. Naturally, no small part of this attitude is due to an extensive presence of the Church of Ezra and the aid it provides in laying to rest their many unquiet spirits that haunt Mordent. In many ways, divine arts are considered one of the only sure paths to spiritual protection and quiet afterlife, two qualities that are very important to Mordentish people. Thus, those who practice the divine arts are accorded no small amount of respect and even admiration. In this difficult life, those with spiritual strength to devote themselves to the divine must be that much more possessed of inner strength and devotion. Naturally, given the prevalence with which the mists creep through the land, it is also no surprise that Mordent is home to perhaps the most devoted following of Ezra in the core. From original home at the Church of Pure Hearts in Mordenshire, anchorites of Ezra travel forth on missions of mercy across the lands, healing the sick, ministering the faithful, and at times, leading exorcisms. All the settlements of any size have an anchorite of Ezra, who ministers to the spiritual needs of the populace and often acts as the advisor to the town's appointed officials. These anchorites frequently wield a great deal of power over people, even to the point of reversing that official decision, backed up by some edict of their own faith. Of additional special note is the celebration known as Nocturne. The Mordentish believe the border between the living world and the other side grows thin on the night of the first new moon in October, and spirit may be drawn to visiting the living world. Lonely folk who desire a visit from their dead loved one leave their front door unlocked and a glass of wine on the stoop. Those who do not want the dead coming home to visit hang ornate tin lanterns patterned after leering ghastly faces on their front doors to scare off the spirits. Some eccentric nobles are known to hold masquerade balls on the night of the Nocturne. While such parties are considered quite scandalous by polite society, their appeal has made them quite popular with more than a few young nobles. Mordent is protected by Mordenshire Lamplighters, an elite force of watchmen and investigators that patrol the city's mist-shrouded streets on behest of the sheriff. As the sheriff is often the first local official that adventurers come in contact with, for better or worse, bearing in mind the regional differences is important. Mordentish watchmen are renowned locally for their courage and tenacity. They are notoriously hard to bribe or otherwise coerce, since most are lifetime residents of their towns and thus their own family and friends would suffer. One can recognize a watchman on duty by his long black coat, matching tri-corner hat and a snow-white scarf. True inducted members of the Lamplighters wear a silver and black pin fashioned in the shape of a lantern, worn on the lapel to complete the outfit. Time itself has similarly conspired to wear down the once mighty noble families that ruled the shrouded land. Of the greater families, only the Weathermaids remain, and even their numbers are small. The situation does not mean that the family rule is on the verge of collapse, however. The Weathermaids continue a bold and heroic tradition, and even the ailing Lord Jules is accorded great respect for his long years of rule. These legends may serve to stave off the inevitable for a while longer, but in the end, Mordent evidently stands at the cusp of a great change. Either the younger generation of Weathermaids will accept their destiny and take the reins of leadership, or someone else will become the ruler of this domain. As to this land's lord, I can hardly believe Lord Jules fits the criteria I have established in my previous stories, so it appears that the darkness stems from the Griffin matter in some form or the other. I must say that I have heard the rumors that the death of Godfrey family might have not been an accident. Lord Wilfrid was always known for his cruel demeanor, and some locals find the death of his family quite suspicious. Officially, it is said that both Lady Estelle and Lil Lilia were trampled by horses during one of the travels through the domain, but multiple witnesses heard Lord Godfrey curse Estelle for not giving him an heir. If this is true, and he indeed killed his family and then himself, his ghost may indeed be the Dark Lord of the Griffin Hill and the whole Mordent. Thank you so much for your time, patient listeners. For all our sakes, I hope that the dignity that Mordentish folk show is genuine, and so is their kindness. But for now, as always, take care while crossing the mists.